and thank you so much for being with us today. I am meteorologist Leah Pizzetti, and this is Weather Out West, an hour-long show where we showcase what's happening weather-wise across the western United States. Forecasters from our sister stations in 8 regions will bring you daily weather forecasts and explain weather phenomenon impacting people across your region. You'll find coverage from the Pacific Northwest to the Mountain West and California to Arizona in the Southwest. And when severe weather hits, we'll be the first to alert you if it could impact people or property. Today, we're going to start in one of the hottest regions across the West Coast. We'll get to Phoenix, where we may see record-breaking heat, but first, let's head to Spokane, where we're seeing critical fire danger in eastern Washington.
I'm Nicole Hernandez in Spokane, Washington. Right now we have a beautiful look over Lake Coeur d'Alene. The one thing I want to note, well, earlier we saw a couple people already out on the water. It is just 9 o'clock this morning as we're recording this, and it is beautiful out. We're about 72 degrees here in Spokane, so similar out in Coeur d'Alene as well. But the thing I wanted to note specifically was the fact that you can see the water moving in the wind just a little bit. Not all that bad, but later today, that wind is going to pick up and the water probably going to get a little bit more choppy, a little bit less calm. If you're planning on getting out on the water to kind of beat the heat, make sure you're aware of the fact that that's how those conditions will be. Today through the rest of the week, we are going to be hot and we are going to be sunny. We also are windy today and tomorrow, and that combination means we are going to have critical fire danger for our region. Let's start with some of those hot temperatures. We have a heat advisory in effect today through parts of our region. The parts of our region that are in that heat advisory are specifically the spots that have a higher chance of reaching that 100-degree point. Some spots in those areas are Omak, Moses Lake, even Ritzville, right on that line there. So some of us definitely extremely hot for today. Even if you're not reaching 100 degrees, you're likely still solidly in the 90s. Here in eastern Washington and North Idaho, that potential for 96 degrees, 97 degrees. Everyone definitely quite warm. Today, even warmer than we were yesterday, just for a little bit of perspective there. If you thought it was hot yesterday, it's even going to be worse today. The other thing we're talking about is high fire danger. So yesterday I showed you this exact same map. Yesterday it had fire weather watches, this tan color, through this part of the region here, just south of that Spokane line. Now the National Weather Service has upgraded these to red flag warnings and increased the area. So more of the region under more intense warnings here because of high fire danger. We already talked about the heat. Of course, that's a big factor in fire danger. The other thing, though, is wind. Today, starting at about noon, we start to see those winds increase in our region. Today, we have wind gusts of 20 to 30 miles per hour through the afternoon. That's why those red flag warnings starting to go in effect as of this afternoon. Tomorrow, we start to see those wind gusts increase, 30 to 40 mile per hour wind gusts tomorrow, all the way through our regions, central Washington, eastern Washington, North Idaho, seeing those pretty intense winds. The winds aren't intense in the way of potentially falling trees or, they're not going to cause any damage, but what they will do is cause that increased fire danger. They're just strong enough to really make the fires, if they do spark, spread pretty erratically. It's wind, it's heat, and it's also dry that we're dealing with. This is a look at the dry. Most of the state under dry drought conditions right now. 20% of the state under severe drought conditions. Partly in central Washington is where we're seeing that. Central Washington has not seen a measurable wetting rain for the past 40 days, according to the National Weather Service. So the fuels, the grasses, those are all very dry right now, meaning they're easily sparkable. And if something sparks, of course, we just talked about it, it would move erratically because of the winds as well. Those winds also shifting through the day. They're not coming from just one direction all day long. Tuesday and Wednesday, that's today and tomorrow, that's when we're under the weather impact alert. That's for all of this heat and the fire danger that we just went over. So make sure we're staying cool, we're being conscious of the fact that it is going to be hot, and we, of course, don't spark any fires. By Thursday, things cool off just a tiny bit, but then we very quickly heat back up this weekend into the 90s.
Thank you for that, Nicole. Now let's get to Phoenix, where extreme heat warnings are in place for the next few days, with temperatures staying well above normal, even for Arizona's hot summer standards.
I'm meteorologist Ginger Jeffries with a look at weather out west across the great state of Arizona. And you notice this background, it is red today. That's because we have weather impact alerts starting today through Thursday due to extreme weather conditions. I'm talking about heat. I mean, look across the state. We are looking for numbers that are going to be on the excessive side today. Look at this. Lake Havasu, 114. I've got 112 today in Yuma, about 106 in Tucson, 93 in Show Low, 88 in Grand Canyon, a pair of 9s for Sedona, and overhead our official high in Phoenix, 113 degrees. Wow, this is definitely grabbing the attention of the National Weather Service. We have this heat warning now in place for all the areas you see in pink, so it's pretty expansive. It's just not one county. It's basically about 40% of our entire state under the gun of extreme conditions, and that does mean we are looking for record territory. So that's why we've issued this weather impact alert through Thursday. Now, I think the peak of the heat is going to be tomorrow, and that is when we have potential to break some records. But I basically laid it out for you over the next 72 hours. Today, our forecast 113, the record 118. I think that's going to stay. Tomorrow, the forecast 117, and the record is actually 116 degrees, which we actually set last year during one of the hottest summers we've ever dealt with. And then on Thursday, the forecast is 113 and the record is 115. So certainly within realm on Thursday, but I am expecting to meet or beat the record on Wednesday. Now, around the region, this trend of numbers climbing is not just for western or southern Arizona. We're seeing it for northern and the rim country. And look at this. Numbers are getting really close to record territory in higher elevations as well. So the peak on Wednesday, your high country records. Again, I'm looking forward to tomorrow simply because, I mean, these numbers are pretty high. In Flagstaff, seeing 90 degrees is not that normal. I mean, places in higher elevations don't have air conditioning like we do here in Phoenix. So when we're getting this high, it is definitely not normal. So here you can see the records, and it looks like Sedona may see a record on Wednesday, but everybody else, the records are a little more extreme. So as far as what's going on, high pressure. Anytime I talk about high pressure over the Four Corners, it's basically blocking all that cool air to the north of us, not allowing it to come into play. So dominant high pressure, dominant clear skies, dominant sunshine, and all this translates to, yes, above normal temperatures. However, we still have just a hint of moisture moving through. As you can see on our monsoon meter, which is again just basically a gauge of that monsoon moisture moving on through. Once again, it's really huddled right around southeast Arizona, and you can see it's minimal at best, but simply because this is unstable air, we always want to keep our eye on it so we can keep you ahead of any potential moisture. These pop-ups are very isolated and not very powerful. I think this is the biggest issue for us on a more global scale from today through Thursday because of the extreme heat. Stay indoors and stay hydrated. I mean, look where we're supposed to be this time of the year. Doesn't 107, doesn't that seem nice? Especially when we're talking about 113 degrees today. So extreme heat in the works for you. Again, daytime highs elevated. We are going to get some wind in the higher elevations right around the time those storms are bubbling up. Remember, the moisture coincides with the wind. So the way it's going to play out next 7 days, as you can see, temperature-wise, we are riding on the high side. Even for Flagstaff, more monsoon moisture will be developing early part of next week, but not much relief for the valley. Instead, daytime highs stay in the excessive side through Thursday, but we're upwards of 110 degrees for the next 7 days.
Thank you, Ginger. Man, it's crazy that 110 looks nice. Still ahead after the break, we take you to Boise, where the heat there is expected to catch a break here soon, and also Denver, where the hottest temperatures of the week are still on the way. Welcome back. Let's take you now to Idaho, where triple-digit heat is backing off, but being replaced with thunderstorm potential. We'll turn things over now to Boise.
Hello, my name is Hector Mendoza, and I am forecasting out here in Boise, Idaho, talking about southwest Idaho and what we can expect through the rest of the day today and into the next couple of days. So here's a graphic that we haven't really pulled up, and this is our triple-digit day tracker. So far this year, we've seen 2 days at or above 100 degrees for this year. So the first time we saw it was a little sooner than we normally anticipate there at the end of the month of May. Then after that, the second day we got over triple digits there was July 1st, was to open off the month of July. And then we got and hit at 102 for that day. And we're expecting this number to jump to 3 as we have triple digit temperatures in the forecast for today. And that includes places in the Magic Valley. So it includes Gooding that could hit at 101, surpassing that century mark, and other spots including Jerome and Shoshone could hit right below or right at 100 degrees through the rest of this afternoon. Blazing heat, and it's going to be hard to really escape some of the heat, as even up into the mountains here, looking at temperatures in the central mountains here, 92 degrees expected for Haley, 94 out in Fairfield, and into the upper 80s for Stanley and other spots in the central mountains. And that's going to be pretty similar here in the west central mountains, where we could even see some temperatures hit right at triple digits, including Council, and not too far along there in Riggins, hitting at 99 for today. And then triple digit heat is really going to start to settle in here in portions of the lower Treasure Valley. 105 expected out in Emmett. Same thing out in Caldwell. Boise seems to be sort of the quote unquote coolest one here, but still hitting at 102. And that dangerous heat comes along later on in the afternoon if you are not prepared. So making sure, again, sunscreen, lots of water, and making sure to find that shade, and maybe not sort of heading out into the afternoon, as we're going to have that peak heat come along between 11 and all the way into maybe 3 or 4 o'clock. But we also have some thunderstorms that we are going to be tracking, and some cooler temperatures as we get towards Wednesday and Thursday. So we have a couple of systems that are going to be impacting our weather here. So as we head on into Wednesday, we see that system here off the coast of California that makes its way on through. That'll continue pumping in moisture, so we could see some showers later on into today, but most likely we see that a lot more widespread as we head on into Wednesday, when we can expect some of those showers and thunderstorms to come along through the afternoon. And then we see another short wave there coming in on Thursday that'll drop down our temperatures, and Thursday is when we're expecting to see our coolest temperatures of the week here, and so we're expecting that to really start to drop down. So again, as we look at the temperatures, 102 today, still hot, dropping down to 95 into tomorrow, but we're expecting to get below average temperatures, still warm, but into the upper 80s as we normally are, into the low 90s for today. And then we'll start to climb back to more seasonable temperatures as we get towards the end of the week. But as I did mention, we do have some showers and some thunderstorms we are forecasting. So here's this future cast. We put it into motion. So again, this is looking at what we're expecting at least this afternoon. Not really much through the rest of the day today. It's not going to be until we get closer into Wednesday afternoon is when we're expecting to see that really start to make its way through into portions of the Treasure Valley. Could be pretty isolated, but again, most of that really stays up into the mountains as we're going to see stronger storms and maybe a chance to see a little bit more of that precipitation before it starts to make its way on out as we head closer into Thursday, and we'll see drier conditions. We will see some breezier conditions as some of those systems come through. We could even see some windy conditions come along for portions of the Magic Valley. But as we look at the 7-day forecast here for Boise and portions of the Treasure Valley, we do have those chances of thunderstorms. Winds increase there Wednesday into Thursday, and those will be the big problems and the biggest hazards that we're going to be paying attention to with the storms that come along. And then again, after that, as we look at temperatures for the weekend, upper 90s, expecting to get 2 degrees shy of triple digits as we see Sunday and Monday. And then we see some mild temperatures in for the morning into the upper 60s there to begin next week.
Thank you for that, Hector. Now let's get to Denver, where thunderstorm threats also continue to loom, but temperatures haven't even hit their peak yet.
Hello from Denver, Colorado. I'm meteorologist Kathy Sabin. Quite often this time of year, we have thunderstorms each and every afternoon. And much like what we experience in the afternoon with the rain and the wind and the lightning, sometimes storms will drop some large hail. And that's what happened yesterday in northeastern Colorado. We had hailstones over 1 inch in diameter, even a tornado reported. And then the storms move out and things kind of calm down a little bit. And sometimes we'll get a lot of viewer pictures of rainbows, which is amazing. This most recent weather system is tracking off to the east, but we're looking south at the moisture coming into Colorado from the southwest. Not quite the early season monsoon yet, and that's when we see that seasonal wind shift that allows for that tropical moisture to feed into Colorado. That gives us a chance of slow-moving storms and rain day after day. It looks like the monsoon's beginning, but it's not here yet. Instead, we'll be looking at the chance for severe storms across eastern Colorado again today. A level 1 out of 5. And so even with Denver included in this, we're not really looking at rotating storms today, more like what we saw on Monday, the high base gusty storms, microburst storms that produce damaging wind and again, give you a whole lot of lightning, which can be extremely dangerous. We do see the threat for severe weather shifting east as we move into the second half of the week, and then really it does become all about the heat. So today, a level 1 out of 5, a marginal risk for severe storms, rotating storms. That's not really going to be our issue this afternoon. High pressure is coming in, a heat dome, and that means record high temperatures expected. National Weather Service already putting out a heat advisory for Denver on Wednesday when we could see record high temperatures close to 100 degrees. Heat illness is a very real thing with temperatures like that, and the moisture is so limited underneath the ridge. There'll be 1 or 2 storms that develop in the day that could reach severe limits out on the eastern plains, but I think the chance for rain in Denver is pretty low. So we'll start in the 60s today, warm into the mid-90s, and then we have a weather impact alert for Wednesday with a record high close to 100. Finally, some cooler weather with some storms on Friday, and then back to sunshine and 90s for Sunday and for Monday.
If you're watching me from the South Metro area, you had a really dramatic rush of wind yesterday between about 12:50 p.m. and 1 p.m. And it led to this. This is the IKEA sign at I-25 and County Line. It got completely blown off by a 70-mile-an-hour wind gust, estimated 70-mile-an-hour wind gust there at I-25 and County Line. An official 66-mile-an-hour wind gust at the Centennial Airport, a couple miles to the east of there. So some pretty dramatic photo from there. And also a lot of big trees taken down by that. Again, 66, 70-mile-an-hour wind. That's a dramatic wind, and that also led to a couple hundred power outages yesterday. So you might be wondering, it seemed to come out of the blue. In fact, you see some blue sky up there as well. So what led to this? This was a classic dry microburst. Let me explain. So most of our moisture yesterday, just like today, was at the mid and upper levels of the atmosphere. That means at the surface, though, a lot of dry air. Rain trying to fall. As it does so, it's evaporating. If you've ever gone out for a run, a lot of you, I would imagine, have sweated before, right? Assuming all of you have sweated at some point in your lives, sweating is a cooling process, right? That's the reason you sweat. Evaporation is a cooling process. And so what happens, you get a big pool of cold, dense air. Cooler air is denser than the warm air that surrounds it, so it rushes towards the ground, and you feel it in the form of a dramatic wind gust. So those wild winds, 66-mile-an-hour wind gusts at Centennial, 70-mile-an-hour gust at the I-25 and County Line area, including right there at the IKEA store, caused by these dying thunderstorms, and a lot of unstable air aloft gave us a lot of that instability and gave us some of those showers and storms that produced that really dramatic wind gust that we saw yesterday.
Really great information. Thank you so much, Kathy and Chris. Well, after the break, we'll head to the Golden State, where high heat concerns and wildfire threats are also top of mind. Those forecasts are still ahead. Welcome back. Thank you so much for staying with us. We'll now take you to the Golden State. We'll start in San Diego, where the National Weather Service has issued multiple heat alerts as well. Let's check in with Evan Narani. Evan, thank goodness for San Diego County beaches on hot days like this.
I'm meteorologist Evan Narani in San Diego on a cloudy start to the morning, but those clouds are quick to break apart as we see a ridge of high pressure expanding over the western U.S., allowing for a gradual warm up, in particular across the desert southwest. This is what we saw this morning from Mission Bay. Already watching as those clouds break apart in the corner of your screen, some of the sun beaming down on the water, people enjoying the boardwalk there, a run down the way, as temperatures stay mostly in the 60s for the start of the day. Here's another camera that we have outside from Mount Soledad looking toward about east. If you look out toward the right-hand side of the view here, we're starting to move south toward that view of downtown. Sunset still not coming until 8 p.m. and some of our views, just like this one, still inundated with clouds. So those clouds hang on for the morning hours and then by mid-morning tend to pull their way back. We expect that for days to come, this cloud cover will be less of a problem on hand for the morning hours, simply because we've got a pretty decent warming trend expected. This morning, those clouds didn't even stretch as far east as they typically do. A heat advisory is going to be the main talker for Wednesday and Thursday across San Diego County, inland valleys and mountains. That is going to be in effect through 8 p.m. on Thursday before it expires and temperatures start to slide. Everywhere in orange, expecting afternoon highs on Wednesday and Thursday in the 90s. If you look all the way out east to Borrego Springs, Ocotillo Wells, we've got purple on the screen. That's where temperatures could reach above 110 degrees. Usually our heat index graphic goes for Borrego Springs, where we see that heat index move toward the moderate and high range. In this case, for what we have with this very brief heat wave, it's only about 2 days, we see Borrego Springs in their afternoon high temperatures above 110 every day. So basically breaks the graphic because it heads above the extreme range. So that's to be known for Borrego Springs and Ocotillo Wells, is that it is just dangerously hot out there for the next several days. But in an area like Ramona, where we typically don't see that heat index quite as high, it starts to move to the elevated range, then the moderate range. You can see how day over day between Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, or Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, I should say, that those temperatures keep climbing out there. Look at your high temperatures for this afternoon. We've got 70s out by the coast, the coastline, the beaches. They remain the most popular place to be, where the most mild temperatures can be found. If you're inland, you might want to find a pool or at least start to crank the AC. We know many people are going to start doing so with highs in the 80s. Every spot that you see with highs in the mid 80s or so are likely to see afternoon highs in the 90s by the time we get to tomorrow afternoon or Thursday afternoon. 94 already in Ramona today, 95 in Campo, 88 in Julian, and then in Borrego Springs, 112 pushing into the 1-teens for the days to come. 7-day forecast points to consistent 70s out by the water. So between now and the early portion of next week, those temperatures will slide a couple degrees, but still only looking at about a 3-degree change overall across our inland valley, across our coastline. Inland valleys, however, looking at temperatures about 5 to 10 degrees above normal. Normal would be what we see about Friday through Monday, low to mid 80s, but 90s expected Wednesday and Thursday. That's why for both of those days, we're calling for weather impact alert days. These are days that you might want to bring a little extra water out with you for the day. You might want to plan accordingly to keep the pets inside, maybe on a shorter walk, just all the typical things that you do to prepare for high heat. Spend a little less time in the heavy clothing. Check on your neighbors, check on the kids, right? Across our mountains and deserts, you might want to cancel any hikes that you have coming up for Wednesday and Thursday, also highlighted in red as weather impact alert days, just because of the heat out there, cooling down just a hair by the weekend. Or you can always head out very early in the morning with those low 60s as a more moderate hike. 115 is what we're expecting as those forecast highs across the deserts, cooling down only slightly by the time we get into the beginning of next week. So it is a brief heat wave, we'll say, for mainly Wednesday and Thursday, but still staying pretty warm into next week.
Thank you, Evan. Now let's head to Northern California, where parts of the Sacramento Valley are enjoying pleasant 80s and low 90s before triple digits make a comeback. Let's get to our Northern California forecast.
I'm meteorologist Brendan Minchef with the outlook for Northern California, and the coast is going to stay cool and foggy. I think a lot of times in the summertime we think about the coast or we think about the beach and water as being warm, sunny, somewhere you want to go sunbathe. That is definitely not the case over the next several days, as is fairly typical for the Northern California coast this time of year. The valley will be undergoing a warming trend. We're going to go from those upper 80s and low 90s to triple digits by the end of this week. Warm and dry conditions persist in the foothills and in the high country. We have seen some thunderstorms off and on to start the month of July, but at this point and going forward, I'm expecting that thunderstorm activity to really wind down. The only exception being the far northern part of the state near the state line with Oregon. As we look at the start of the month for Sacramento, it did start off hot. We were in the mid to upper 90s across much of the valley, not just Sacramento, but across much of the valley. Some places even climbed into the triple digits. But then as we got closer to the 4th of July, things got a lot better. It was 86 degrees for the 4th of July, and that was the coolest 4th of July that we've had in Sacramento since 2022. Last year's 4th in Sacramento was 106 degrees. We were a whole 20 degrees cooler for this holiday, and the rest of the weekend was quite nice as well. But like I said, things are going to get warmer. Today, though, not so bad. 86 in Placerville, 81 Pollock Pines, 88 in Auburn, 85 Nevada City, 80 in South Lake Tahoe, and 81 in Truckee. As we move to the southern Sierra here, for Sequoia and Kings Canyon National Park, it's going to be in those mid-80s today. About 83 in Yosemite, so fairly similar. 98 in Fresno, 97 in Madera, and 94 in Merced this afternoon. Out along the coast, like I said, cool and foggy, so low to mid-60s for most places. 66 in Morro Bay, 70 in Big Sur, 62 in Carmel, 65 in Monterey, 66 in Santa Cruz. Of course, as you work your way inland, things do get much warmer. We're going to be in those upper 90s for places like Hanford, even 100 degrees for Bakersfield this afternoon. In the San Francisco Bay Area, 68 in San Francisco, 64 in Pacifica and Half Moon Bay, 79 in San Jose, 70 in Oakland, 90 in Tracy, 85 in Vacaville. So the coolest place, obviously, right along the coast, 70 in Oakland. Very quickly you get into those low to mid 80s, and once you get on to the other over the other side of the coastal range into the valley, we're looking at those mid to upper 80s, even like I said, 90 degrees in Tracy. 66 in Point Reyes, though, as we look across the far northern part of the state. Warmest in the valley, 94 in Red Bluff this afternoon, 96 in Redding, 87 up at Mount Shasta, 95 in Wairika, 91 for the Northeast Plateau. Although as we go back to the coast, we're staying overcast. 59 in Fort Bragg, 58 in Eureka, 61 up at Redwood National Park, 59 in Crescent City, and then a little closer to the Sacramento area, temperature is going to be in those upper 80s and low 90s, a little cooler than normal for the time of year. We're going to continue to see those nice delta breezes through the overnight. So if you're unfamiliar with that cool Pacific air and the warm valley creates that gradient where that wind just comes right on in and introduces a lot of cooling into the valley. It's one of the great things about living in the Central Valley in the summertime. But along the coast, you see that stratus there just stays through the rest of today and into tomorrow as well. So as we look at visibility, even though we may see a little bit of intrusion in the valley at times through the overnight hours, during the afternoons, it is just socked in right along the coast. If it's not foggy, you're under that marine layer with that marine stratus, and that'll be the case through Wednesday as well. Things do start to warm up, though, as high pressure builds in. So we're going to be looking at temperatures climbing back towards 100 degrees for Thursday and Friday. So as we look at the extended part of the forecast for Northern California, temperatures are getting much hotter as we get to the triple digits for the end of the work week.
Oh yeah, Brendan, any Californian knows that marine layer, that delta breeze in Northern California is a savior. Well, still ahead after the break, the Pacific Northwest is saying goodbye to above average temperatures and welcoming back some much needed rain. Yeah, we haven't heard that so far in the show. We'll go to Seattle and Portland next. Welcome back to Weather Out West. We are so glad you're staying with us today. We've been talking about summer heat, and that's what the Northwest has also felt the last few days, but a massive change is heading our way. We'll start in Seattle, where a good 15 degrees of cooling in the span of just one day is coming.
Hi, I'm King 5 meteorologist Rich Marriott, and another sunny day around Puget Sound. We have a little bit of haze starting to show up in there, and it's from the wildfire near Lake Cushman. Just a little bit of wildfire smoke is kind of spread out over Puget Sound, but we have onshore winds which are going to be pushing that away, and it should be clearing it out a little bit today, though that fire does continue to burn there in the Olympics. Take a look at the Queen Anne Tower camera. You can kind of see that haze out there in the distance. The good news is it isn't really down on the ground. You get a better idea from the Tacoma Tower cam, where you can see it kind of up off the ground and kind of at least down there concentrated in a fairly thin layer. You can see on the satellite image the fire right here still producing some smoke, but it's kind of entrained in here with all the different air currents around the sound. It's kind of spread it out, but it is pushing it generally towards the east, and that's where it will continue to go, it looks like. And if we take a look at our air quality forecast for today, you can see really not impacting us here at the surface. Generally good air quality for all the stations around western Washington for today. So at least even though we can see it, take some of the brightness brightness out of the sun isn't affecting the air we breathe. Checking the fire weather forecast specifically for that Bear Gulch fire there by Lake Cushman. Actually not that bad of conditions today. Temperatures mid-70s to mid-80s. Light winds overall, so that does help out a lot. And minimum humidity only 40 to 55%, so it's recovering pretty well after the going up overnight. Not expecting it to drop off all that much this afternoon. And they're continuing to fight that. They're scooping up water out of Lake Cushman and dropping that on that fire, but it's kind of remote and in very steep terrain, so a difficult one to fight. Take a look at our pollen count from Northwest Asthma and Allergy from yesterday. Well, with the warm weather, they continue to produce quite a bit of pollen. Trees in the moderate range yesterday, grasses in the low range, and weeds popped right back up into the high range. And it looks like we'll be continuing to encourage them to grow today with more sunshine and warm temperatures on tap. You can see on our First Alert 7-day forecast, pretty close to where we were yesterday. Out at SEA, we hit 85 yesterday. It was 87 down in Olympia. And Shelton down there in the South Sound was the warm spot at 88 degrees yesterday. But we'll drop anywhere from about 3 to 5 degrees, it looks like, today for most spots. And as we head towards late today, changes you can see. We're going to get a front through here for a little bit of rain tomorrow and much cooler temperatures, but we recover pretty quickly as we head towards the end of the week, especially over the weekend. Take a look at the live satellite image right now. All invisible lights. You can see that front up there over Vancouver Island pushing its way in slowly. And you can also see the onshore winds bringing that marine air in through the strait. Also down there over southwestern Washington, almost into the South Puget Sound, but not quite. But it's generally going to be just cooling us off a little bit, and that will be increasing as that front pushes in. Primarily after midnight is when we expect to see that rain begin to move into the Bellingham area and then gradually spread over the area. Heaviest amounts will be generally from about Everett northward, with only trace amounts or maybe a few hundredths of an inch for the other stations. In fact, if we take a look at the computer model, you can see not really picking up anything. At midnight, seeing a little bit of rain out there towards the northwest tip of the state. And then as we get into the day on Wednesday, we're going to be looking for those quantities to be greatest up to the north, almost a half an inch around the Bellingham area. And importantly, a half an inch, maybe as much as locally an inch over the North Cascades. So a very wetting rain for them, which is great to get that rain this time of the year without really any lightning associated with it. So that's a definite plus for us. And you see, as we total it all up to not much once you get down south of Everett, it looks like, and then we get right back into sunshine as we head towards the end of the week. So for today, look for mostly sunny skies. We'll see those clouds start to move in later on this afternoon. High temperatures mostly in the upper 70s and low to mid 80s. Rain moves in late tonight. A little steady rain in the morning. That'll turn to off and on showers for the afternoon. Highs dropping back to the 60s to right near 70 degrees. We'll be drying out for Thursday. Look for just a few clouds around early, then sunshine, low to mid 70s. Then we get back into sunny skies and warm temperatures with highs over the weekend in the upper 70s and low 80s.
Thank you so much, Rich. Now we'll take things just a little farther south of western Washington, where a similar pattern is expected. How are things looking in Portland, Rod?
On a Tuesday from the Rose City, I'm meteorologist Rod Hill from Portland with our weather. We hit 90 degrees here in town on Monday. It became the 5th day so far this season that Portland has made it up to 90 or better, and basically we're looking for exactly the same thing on this Tuesday, either just getting to 90 or not. We do have some watches and warnings to get to. These are east of the Cascades. Now, everything colored on this map for the most part is tied to high wildfire danger, including in red flag warning for high fire danger today in Bend, up through Redmond, Madras, the heart of Central Oregon, back in through Prineville and even into John Day. The thought is thunderstorms, and in some cases, the Weather Service is warning of dry lightning, meaning you get the lightning, but you don't have rain accompanying it. That can happen. And then that's a higher threat of starting a fire, obviously. The tan colors here, the lighter tan colors, are fire weather watches up for tomorrow. And again, some thunderstorm activity. And also in the Columbia Basin tomorrow, west winds will start to fire and become stronger than they have been in quite a while. What is overlaid on that map and you can't see is the heat advisory in effect this afternoon and this evening for the Columbia Basin. This is areas east of the Dalles, out through Arlington, Pendleton, and up into Yakima for highs generally 100 to 106. You can see on the map Arlington at 106 degrees today. Now tomorrow, you folks with the west winds picking up will get cooler marine air coming in and your temperature will be knocked down a good 10, 12 degrees. Pendleton 94, Arlington 93. Obviously no heat advisory for the day tomorrow. This shows you the thunderstorm threat activity. Now keep in mind there could be some lightning not accompanied with rain. This is picking up the cumulus clouds with some rain, but generally speaking, not a lot of downpour is expected, and then that moves out of our state. And here's tomorrow morning. The big story tomorrow will be that cooler marine air coming in. Hey, this is fun. This is our live timberline camera up on Mount Hood, zoomed in on what is the Palmer Snowfield. This sits up above 7,000 feet on the mountain. And everything moving, and these are skiers, maybe some boarders, but I think it's mostly skiers up here in the snowfield. If you didn't know, Timberline has big-time summer camps for boarders and skiers. Athletes literally from all over the world come to train, athletes that someday could be on the Olympic teams. It's always fun to kind of zoom in and watch them. It is warm up there, 67 degrees, and that's the morning temperature up at Timberline. All right, our live shot for you over our state capitol in Salem. Again, the big story today up and down the I-5 corridor, the Willamette Valley, is just the sunny skies with the rising temps this afternoon. Here's a look at our Futurecast model. This is going to focus on the clouds coming in to the west side tomorrow morning, Wednesday. Green would represent a little bit of light rain potentially in Astoria. For the valley, it looks like some thinner cloud cover in the morning, and then clouds actually thicken up later in the day as a wave of cooler weather moves in. And if so, we wouldn't see much sun in Portland, Salem, or Vancouver, and Wednesday's highs would do well to be up into the low to mid 70s. Last time we had a cloudy day, it was only 71. That was back on July 4th last week. This shows morning clouds on Thursday, but then Thursday the clouds will go away. Developing sun will give us a little bit of a warmer day. All right, back to today though. On this Tuesday, sunny skies, a hot afternoon, light valley winds. Salem gets up to 91 degrees. Southwest Washington, not as warm. In fact, mid 80s up in Longview, but nearing 90 in Battleground and Vancouver. And a quick look at the forecast map this afternoon with the thunderstorm threat in central Oregon out toward the Blues. And you can see the coast is going to be generally in the 60s today. They've had clouds and fog this morning, looking for some partial sun this afternoon. Portland 7-day, 90 today. The comfortable weather, 75 tomorrow and 78 Thursday. And then back to a potential 91 degree day on Friday and sunny this weekend.
That is a big cool down. Thank you, Rod. Still ahead after the break, we'll have a quick look at our national forecast as we continue to keep an eye on that rain in the south. Welcome back. We have been covering that tragedy in Texas for days now. So we now want to take a look at the national forecast and keep an eye on some of those storms still brewing up in the south.
I'm meteorologist Topper Schutt. Before we get into Tuesday's forecast and the news, we have to take a minute and talk about the rainfall in central Texas the 3rd and 4th of July. So that Thursday and Friday. I mean, you know, you've heard of Kerrville, a lot of problems in Kerrville. 11 inches in essentially a 36-hour period. They only average about 30 inches for the whole year. So they got a third of their annual rainfall in 24 to 36 hours. Crazy. Now, look at this. Go up northwest. Mason, not far off 377, 18.2 inches. So that's more than half their annual rainfall. And I do want to say a couple things. The Weather Service did predict flooding on Monday. They said 3 to 6 inches of rain, and then they upped it a little bit. The problem with this type of a situation was the catastrophic flooding occurred overnight. So warnings went out and they weren't received. They were there, but they weren't received. And that is a common thread when we have a severe event overnight, whether it be tornadic or flash flooding. The warnings are sent out, but never received. Okay, Tuesday, guess what? Hot in the east. I mean, along I-95, we're talking mid-90s in D.C., mid-90s in New York, even low 90s in Boston. Some big storms possible in D.C., a couple storms possible in New York. Showers in Pittsburgh, but cooler because of the clouds. 87 in Columbus, keep you dry. 93 Roanoke, mostly sunny, just a slight chance of a shower. Midwest, very warm. I mean, this is about average. 90 in St. Louis, 85 in Kansas City. Some afternoon storms are possible. 84 Minneapolis and 87 with some clouds in Chicago. Cleveland will keep dry for now, and Cincinnati will keep dry. Most of the showers will be just to the east of you. Southeast, guess what? Hot. I mean hot. 96 in Raleigh, 95 in Atlanta, some afternoon storms. 91 in Orlando, some afternoon storms. We're going to keep Brownsville dry, some storms in Houston and Dallas. Now, yes, there will be some more shower and thunderstorm activity in central Texas. It's not going to be widespread nor crazy heavy, but there will be a few scattered showers. Again, clouds in Lexington, and yes, some storms in Little Rock, mainly late in the day. Same thing in New Orleans, not washout days, but pretty toasty in the southeast. Now, it's hot in the west, but dry. I mean, look at this, 83 in Seattle, mostly sunny. I mean, this is the time to be in the Northwest. It's just spectacular. 90 in Portland, okay, 102 in Boise, 100 in Salt Lake, but it's a dry heat. When the relative humidity is low and you perspire, because it's low and the air is dry, it evaporates and you cool yourself. So it's not so bad. 94 Denver, 95 in Albuquerque, again, mostly sunny skies. Here's a break. San Francisco, 69 onshore flow, pretty nice. And 74 in Los Angeles under partly cloudy skies, also nice. And 113 with sunshine in Phoenix. That is not too far off of your average.
Thanks so much, Topper. Yes, we are very thankful in the West Coast for having that dry heat. No humidity here most of the time in the summer. All right, so that does it for our forecast, but we want to take you from the sky to underwater. Still ahead after the break, an incredible creature that's plentiful or historically plentiful across the West Coast has been under threat, and scientists have been working to bring this population back to life. We'll have a closer look at sea star rehab after the break. Welcome back. We've talked about West Coast beaches. Let's take you underwater now. Beaches from Mexico all the way up to Alaska used to be filled with sea stars until disease wiped out a huge chunk of the species about 10 years ago. I've been following along with the scientists tasked with saving the population and caught up with them to see how their efforts to grow lab-grown sea stars is going. In this Friday Harbor lab, University of Washington researchers have spent more than 5 years growing sea stars from these tiny critters to large, beautiful creatures. Last July marked a major milestone. I was there when they released the first lab-grown sea stars into the wild. Since then, they've been monitoring the star's movement. Research scientist Jason Hoden says they had no idea what would happen.
We might see them for a day or two or maybe a week and then never see them again. And that could mean that obviously we don't want to believe that they died out there, but it could be that they died out there and we just didn't see it, or that they wandered away and that we just never see them again.
But now, about 1 year later, and this success story continues.
That's not what happened. What actually happened was we saw at least the 2-year-old class, which I said were about a salad plate size, are now dinner plate size. And we've seen at least 3 of those 10 within the last few months. And one as recently as like a month ago.
The multiple sea stars that are staying put represent hope for saving other parts of the Pacific as well.
Part of the main reason we're doing this is not just because we love this sea star, although I think that's good enough reason, but that's not the reason why we're really doing this. The reason we're doing this is because we think this sea star has outsized importance.
In 2014, disease wiped out sea stars along nearly all West Coast beaches, from Mexico to Alaska. Since then, there's been a domino effect in the Pacific Ocean. Sea stars eat sea urchins, so the sea urchins exploded in population. The excess urchins then began eating away at kelp, which was already suffering from warming waters, and the underwater forest was essentially wiped out. But this discovery that lab-grown sea stars don't leave when released could be huge for reversing that.
One really exciting possibility that the research that we've been doing demonstrates is that if you put them in a spot that they like, and if they like that spot, if they like eating sea urchins, for example, and you put them in a spot with a lot of sea urchins, they could probably hang around there and have a big effect.
Simultaneously, Hoden says scientists are almost ready to release a report that details the disease that wiped them out in the first place. This information will further help them place the lab-grown sea stars in the open ocean.
When we know the cause, then we can develop a test. And we can develop a test, then we can know that any stars that we're going to put out in the field are not carriers of this disease that could then devastate the wild populations.
This years-long research is not done yet, but it's steadily moving toward replenishing a crucial Pacific species. Now, right now, everything is small scale. Only 10 sea stars were released for monitoring last year. The goal was to figure out if this is even possible, and the results are pointing to yes. As far as next steps are concerned, this will continue to be a slow but steady process. Some of the hardest hit areas are farther south, like California, but California leaders are being cautious, not just waiting on this study, but also waiting for the study that declares the cause of this to go public. That study is expected any day now. So Jason says that some of those hard hit areas like California could see sea stars released potentially in the next few years. So we will continue to keep an eye on that. Well, that does it for Weather Out West today. I am meteorologist Leah Pizzetti. We hope you'll be with us back tomorrow.